22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are tuned into another edition of Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show, episode 303. I am your host, AJ Woodson. Shout to my boy, my partner in crime, Damon K. Jones. He's not here today. And I do have with me, my co-host, Dr. Bob, Robert Baskerville, PhD. And as you can see from his shirt, today's topic is Juneteenth.
Wow, AJ.
What?
I don't think I combed my hair properly.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, that's why cats like me got hats, man.
Okay.
You know. That's right. I'm still rocking. I'm wrecking my Knicks gear. I'm Knicks all the way. They lose. I'm still a Knicks fan. You know, all the fake fans. They they ain't put. You ain't see their gear no more. You ain't got no gear no more. You know, you don't see no more Knicks gear no more. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, welcome to another show. So, Juneteenth is a special. It has a special meaning to African Americans. I don't think, like, I was having a conversation over the break when I was at my sister's and with my daughter, and I know my daughter was saying one of the things she said. She never knew what Juneteenth was until she went to college. Like, that wasn't something that was taught to her in high school. And my sister said the same thing. You know, there's a lot of things she learned in African American studies in college that she had never learned in high school. So Juneteenth is not something necessarily that is always discussed, taught to us in public schools. And most people don't know what it was, because I gotta admit, I don't think I learned about Juneteenth in school either. I know we did an article back in June of 2014 that was written by then former president of the Greenberg White Plains NAACP, chapter of the NAACP. And Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commending the ending of slavery in the United States. I'll just read the beginning. Dating back in 1865, it was June 19th that the Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, landed at Galveston, Texas, with the news that the war had ended. That would be the Civil War, right? The war had ended and the slaves were now free. Now, note, this was 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had become official January 1st, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation had little impact on the Texans due to the minimum number of Union troops to force the new executive order. However, the surrender of General Lee in April of 1865 and the arrival of General Granger's regiment, the forces were finally strong enough to the outcome, influence and outcome the resistance. Later attempts to explain this 2.5 year delay and the receipt of an important news that yielded several versions that have been handed down through the years often told the story of a messenger who was murdered on his way to Texas with the news of freedom. Another is that the news was deliberately withheld by the enslavers to maintain the labor force of the plantations. Another is federal troops actually waited for the slave owners to reap the benefits of one last cotton harvest before going to Texas to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation. All of which, or neither of these versions, could be true. Certainly for some, President Lincoln's authority over the rebellious states was in question. For whatever reason, conditions in Texas remain status quo, well beyond. So this celebration remains important to current generations because it highlights and parallels the condition of today that keep African Americans in a state of second-class citizenship. Local laws that encourage incarceration and limitation on the movement of African Americans began in 1865, and in spite of voting rights and other freedoms guaranteed by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, institutionalized racist behaviors continue to limit economic progress towards inalienable rights and freedoms we have been promised. The current generations must be constantly reminded that we cannot rest on our laurels on gains made in the past as we continue to be lynched by a justice system today. We must emulate the tenacity of the entrepreneurs who built a Wall Street in Oklahoma and in the town of Greenburg where we live. We must never forget the crosses burned on the yards of those who succeeded or challenged injustice, because we are not only a burning cross away from revisiting those days again, we cannot laugh at the disrespectful jokes about lynching or the treatment of our first African-American president, who has been demonstrated dignity and competence in spite of the abuse. Most of all, our young people have to abandon it. It goes on and on. I'll share. The 18th is June 19th is the celebration of the celebration commencing the end of slavery in the United States, and that is what we will be discussing today. I think it's important, being the major Black presence in the county, that we keep this alive and that we keep having this conversation, because, while there are celebrations by others, we need to keep educating those who don't know, and we need to keep talking about this. Dr. Bob, and then I'll bring in our first guest.
So I just want to echo your sentiments, AJ, that one of the central reasons that Juneteenth is important is not just to commemorate a monumental historical event, both in the history of African Americans and the nation as a whole, but I also think that it's important for African Americans in this time of duress that we're confronting to seize upon those rituals and those collective memories that can strengthen us for the task that remains ahead. One of the things that's very clear from developments that are going on across the country is that if more conservative, mainly Republican led state parties have their druthers, they will effectively resurrect the era of Jim Crow, where African Americans had to deal with legal and social restrictions of all kinds, and probably the most important is the right to vote. I also just want to offer up a little hypothesis. I have to say, AJ, I don't really know as much about Juneteenth as I would like to. Like you and so many of our listeners, it really wasn't until I became an adult that I really even became aware of the Juneteenth celebration and its significance. So, but I want to offer, and as unfortunately I did not get an opportunity to prepare as well for today's show as I would have liked to by reading the definitive historical account of Juneteenth by Annette Gordon Reed, if I'm not mistaken. Annette Gordon Reed, she actually won a Pulitzer Prize for it. So I'd invite people who, like me, are looking to gather more information to perhaps find it somewhere. I know it's fairly cheap on Amazon and other stores. I do just want to offer up a hypothesis about the delay in the knowledge of Juneteenth in Texas, of emancipation in Texas in particular. And one of the things that I've discovered over the years is that actually Texas was a refugee for Southern slave owners who were looking to evade Union armies that were making their way deeper and deeper into the South towards the conclusion of the Civil War, in the hopes that, as you indicated, AJ, maybe the war would not come to an end. And perhaps they would be allowed to hold on to their property in human beings. And maybe even there were calls at the time for secession in the state of Texas in order to preserve slavery. So, it's complex why this happened. And, I'm going to be looking to do some more deeper reading to answer some of these questions.
I also, in reading the article that was written in 2014 by, again, then president of the Greenberg White Plains chapter of the NAACP, Lena Anderson, going forward in 2021 in Greenberg, they got the approval to do a Black Lives Matter mural on the street. And then once it was passed, city town hall, I guess the powers to be in town hall wanted to do a 3-part with banners and signs. And the first was a sign that was on all the Welcome to Greenberg signs that said all lives cannot matter until Black Lives Matter. And it went up on a Wednesday afternoon, and by Thursday morning, someone had they took a chain and attached it to the poles and just drove and ripped the entire Welcome to Greenberg sign down. And now, town supervisor Paul Feiner received several calls from outraged members because the sign was even put up saying we don't want stuff like that in Greenberg. And now they took a vote recently, I think this week, that they will not be putting that sign back up, and it will be saying something about we will not tolerate racism in our town or something as a replacement for all lives cannot matter until Black Lives Matter. So we're still fighting this fight. I wanted to say that because what Lena said, we cannot continue to rest on the laurels. We always talk about the movement, the civil rights movement, and Martin Luther King and the great work done back then. But we have to continue to fight forward. As you see right now, we're in risk of losing some of the advancements, like voters' right, like the right to vote. Like, I mean, if the Republicans get their way, and all the voter suppression laws that they're passing in the various states to prevent us from voting. So it's important that we continue these conversations and we continue to fight for equality, justice, and all that. So I want to bring in our new guest, and I will let Dr. Bob introduce her. And I just want to say I put the link to the article by Lena Anderson in the comment section if anybody wants to read that on their own. So go ahead, Bob.
So it's an honor to welcome to the studio new friend of the show, Wilhelmina Simone, Mina Simone, who AJ and I had the
Nina
pleasure
Simone.
of meeting. Yes, we had the pleasure of meeting a couple of weeks ago during an event that we attended. Mina is joined. Mina is an organizer of the Juneteenth, one of the organizers of the Juneteenth celebration in the city of Pelham. And in addition to that, she is a documentarian, and she's joined on air by her co-producer and collaborator, Jeff Watkins. So we know from our discussion with Mina that have some sense of the kind of programming and other activities that you guys have been undertaking in Pelham and beyond through your documentary efforts. And so we're really excited to have you on the show. I think AJ and I have already identified Mina as a young upcoming leader. Jeff, since you have a bald head, brother, you just want to say, well, you're middle-aged leader. We'll take a guess.
Let me also add. I had a conversation with my partner Damon. When we met Nina, it was a pleasure to meet her. I can't say that I was as engaged in all of this at her age, and when we look at the portrayal of African Americans in the media and on television, you see all the ratchet TV and you see all the craziness and stuff. You give me hope for the future, and I just wanted to say that I told you that when I met you. Young lady, good head on her shoulders. She's going to be the future of what all of this looks like. You know what I'm saying? She's going to be at the forefront of all that, and I definitely want to share that with my viewers. Say that to you on air. What I said to you personally. So, welcome, and welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome, y'all.
Thank you. You guys can hear it?
Yes, we can hear you all fine.
Oh, excellent.
Glad to be on. Thank you for your kind words, even though, I feel like I'm also a middle-aged leader, but it's okay.
Well, if I'm not sure.
Well, I just turned 55 in February, so you are definitely the future of this, like compared to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like to believe I'm gonna live to 101, and I'm gonna be like John Lewis right up to my last days. But you are definitely, you bring me hope for the future, because your generation is going to be very instrumental in moving things forward. If you look at John Lewis and them, and back in the civil rights, when Martin Luther King, when they did the crossing of the bridge, John Lewis was like 16, 15 years old, had to get his mother's permission to be in that march. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's the young people that move us forward. It's the young people that's all I wanted to say. Yes, I use an expression, Stephanie say, give us our flowers while we can still smell them. I've been saying that a lot lately. I'm trying to give everyone their flowers while they're alive. My mother used to say that always, give me my flowers while I can smell them. So I'm giving you your flowers. This is me giving you your flowers.
Thank you. I appreciate that greatly. And I'm happy to be here, especially with mentors and everyone.
Is that us or is that?
Okay. Can you say that again, AJ?
Let me start off. I said let me start off by asking you. I said, I don't know if you heard me in the beginning. Over the on the holiday weekend, I was with family, and both my sister, who just turned 50, and my daughter, who just turned 30, will be 32 this year, both were having a conversation. They didn't know anything about Juneteenth until they got into college. My sister, did a lot in African American studies and stuff, and my daughter, this stuff wasn't taught in school. So I wanted to ask you, Nina, when did you learn about Juneteenth? When were you taught about Juneteenth?
I'm pretty sure I learned about Juneteenth in high school, but that's on account of my father being from the South and not really the one to celebrate the 4th of July. So, and then more coming into it when also in college, going into African American studies classes and things like that. And that's when 4th of July was out, Juneteenth was in, and that's been been a thing for me for like 6 years now.
Now, I know I skip through sometimes, but we're very untraditional. Want to go back a little bit. I want you to introduce yourself to the audience, tell them who you are, what you do, and then Brother Watkins, I want you to introduce yourself, tell them who you are and what you do. Go ahead.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Wilhelmina Simone. Mina Simone. I'm a documentarian, yoga teacher, and community organizer. And my focus on is bringing the Black diaspora and their narratives to light. And like you said, giving people their flowers while they can still smell them, especially our stories, and taking control of that narrative. Because for too long, the Black narrative has been controlled and given by our oppressors. Our oppressors. And I want to make sure that not only am I telling like my story, but we're connecting with each other through everyone's story and making that our platform.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeff Watkins, proud son of Mount Vernon, New York. Talked to you before, many moons ago, AJ. I'm a full-time filmmaker, ex-naval officer, ex-Wall Street alumnus from Merrill Lynch, but been full-time film and media producer for the last 13 years, running my production company. Had my office in Mount Vernon for a good period of time, but now I'm just kind of accidentally moved it to Pelham, but I ended up just staying here because I feel like moving everything back. And just, it's just a interesting dynamic and crux, especially dealing with what we're talking about today, being here in Pelham now, being a Mount Vernon guy, growing up not necessarily with the best ideas and reputation for towns like Pelham and Bronxville and Larchmont, the way that things were, for us. And now being here, being a member of the Pelham Arts Council, which is putting together the Juneteenth event, creating this, it's kind of finishing up. I mean, I've been mentoring Mina for a bit now, and just finishing up a lot of work and stuff that she put forth as a young activist and as a young filmmaker before, and now bringing it to a different and a bigger level, and also being on the board of the Picture House, trying to strive to push diversity and new ideas through whatever channels that I gain access to.
AJ?
I think he's froze.
Yeah. So I'll pick it.
Okay. Dr. Bob.
Yeah, so I was going to ask Mina, why don't you just give our
Dr. Bob.
Yes, give our audience a better idea of it, how you arrived at your activism in the city of Pelham, what kind of challenges African Americans in particular experience in the city of Pelham. I grew up right by 590, so I've got my own experiences with residents of Pelham, but I'm curious, and I'm sure our audience is curious to know how your experiences in Pelham led you to a career of activism and documentary filmmaking.
Sure. I'm also from Mount Vernon. I grew up in Mount Vernon. And then when my parents separated, my dad moved to Pelham because he wanted us to have a better education and he wanted us to have a better school system. So I went back and forth between Mount Vernon, Pelham, and the Bronx. And since I wasn't a native to Pelham, I came to Pelham at, I want to say like 11 or 12 years old. But by that time, I already had known that I was Black. And so coming into a predominantly white school, I had already felt like an outcast and isolated. And throughout my youth and teenage years in Pelham, I always, not only did I feel isolated, I felt that no one was speaking up for me. And my dad's from the South. So even coming back to that, my dad's from North Carolina, in Wilson, North Carolina, very rural. And the only reason my dad came to New York was because he was at a very young age chased by the KKK. And so my grandmother shipped him to New York. So I always had like a very, very well-rounded lesson in racism and how to be vigilant for things that could be detrimental to my health and my body as a Black woman. And being one of the only Black students in Pelham and not having many people to speak up for me, I felt like at the end of the day, if no one's going to do it, I have to do it. And if no one's going to do it for me, I have to do it for myself and others. So I always knew I talked a lot and I wanted to be in front of the camera. So for my senior year, I decided to interview other Black students in Pelham, actually every student in Pelham, about the racism dynamics. I didn't want to limit it to just a Black perspective because racism and anti-Blackness affects everyone in different ways. And just knowing the experiences that not only that I had, but that my friends had, my brother had, and that other students were willing to talk about, I felt that the school system needed to know what was going on behind like official doors that they maybe were either turning a blind eye to are just covering their ears for in light of wanting to be the best school system that they can be, putting out excellence. But that was deteriorating the mental health, emotional health, and stagnating the growth of a lot of their Black students. So in my senior year for broadcast production, my senior project was going to be a reflection of the racism in Pelham schools. However, that film was not made because at the social climate of the time, it just wasn't called for. I think they were scared of it. Actually, I know they were scared of it, especially it being more raw than I can be now because I was 17 and there was no boundaries. So it was purged from their system and I wasn't allowed to have that footage. So I went into college for political science and film. And then in college, I had the same idea. I want to speak to Black people. I want to know their narratives. I want to know their experiences. And I want to give them a platform for them to speak, but not to be censored. And throughout that, I developed like a YouTube show called Black Girl Politics and then a podcast for more intimate topics relating to the Black plight. And then that led me into going to Europe and interviewing different Black people across European countries in the same fashion that I wanted to do in high school. But more so, I wanted to interview Black people in white territory. So instead of how like we're kind of just here, all that 1619 slavery stuff, I wanted to be like, what is the Black experience in Europe, on their land, in their territory? How do we feel about that? And then by the graces of God and the universe and the ancestors and just the divine alignment, I met Jeff last year at a George Floyd rally and protest, and I spoke my truth and led a meditation ceremony for the people in Pelham. That's when me and Jeff met. I didn't know there was another Black filmmaker in Pelham, so I was really excited. And a year later, he contacted me saying Pelham is doing a documentary about the racial dynamics and social dynamics here in Pelham. So I know that even though it wasn't made in 2015 how I would have liked it for my senior project, is because it was too precious for me to have in my hands at that time. And now it's being made, and it's being made not only better in the right way, but it's more monumental because before I'm just interviewing students, and now we have the privilege, the opportunity, and the blessing to interview police chiefs, superintendents, the mayors, interviewing both village and manor mayors, different people, different organizations, younger than me, older than me now. So seeing how like I started high school over 10 years ago, and now seeing some seniors and some sophomores speak now, versus how some people are speaking, like living in Pelham their whole lives, and other organizations that came forward to speak on their own experiences on the behalf of like some of the white residents. And so now it's even better now. So I'm so grateful that it came around full circle the way it has.
So, Jeff, let me say I want to commend you for playing the identified role of mentor. Tamina, I think a lot of the discussion that we have today about chances for success of African Americans in various professions highlights the important role that mentors play. So can you tell us a little bit more about your filmmaking background. I know you've been in the field for some time now. Can you give us a sense of some of your major film, what the kind of themes that they address? Maybe even where some of our viewers might be able to see it still.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I always got to pay it forward. And then just so I don't forget, we are also, like I said, I'm on the board of the Picture House. I'm doing two 1-week courses in August. So if any of the kids, one is for like middle school kids, another one is for high school kids. And I can give my contact, in regards to if any kids want to participate and learn filmmaking. For me, I got into filmmaking. My transition was from Merrill Lynch. I came in wanting to be I wanted to be behind the scenes. I wanted to be the financier behind film projects. And so since then, my first partner in the film business was the late, great Chadwick Boseman. We were producing a script that he had written. And the thing is that project ended up trying to come along right around the recession time. So we ended up breaking off on that project. And I went on, and we're supposed to have Zoe Saldana, the actress, the Marvel Studios and stuff, be one of the leads in that project. We had a lot of people lined up in that project. And through those relationships, I started creating other projects when the funding didn't come forth on that project. So I created a show with Zoe Saldana that I created. I have created by credits and producer credits on that we sold to Time Warner. And I think right now that's on the Time Warner AOL channel. It was on the AOL channel for a bit now. I'm pretty sure it's still on, but it's called My Hero. Anyone could search Zoe Saldana Presents My Hero. And in that project, we have a bunch of different. All my projects have a positive meaning behind them. And we had Nick Cannon involved in that project, Zoe, Idris Elba, Maria Menounos, Mark Ruffalo, Gina Rodriguez, Golden Globe winner, friend of ours. So we sold that project. Then I'm producing a film down Dominican Republic about child organ trafficking in Haiti. It's an action thriller. My first multi-million-dollar budget. That's been a multi-year project. We had to start and stop a couple of times. But now I just came back from Dominican Republic and Haiti over the last 5 months. I got back last month and we're finishing up that project. And then I have a documentary with a partner of mine. He's a journalist from Mount Vernon, Gerald Hoover, that we actually finally, God's blessings, securing some deals right now to finish that project called 4 Square Miles of Glory about the basketball culture and prowess in Mount Vernon, New York. And but aside from that, I did a documentary project for Toyota that we aired in 15 different cities that we talked about the connection and mixture of Black history, New York City history, and basketball, and that a lot of that revolves around Harlem, and also did a project with the NHL referencing and speaking about the Black influence of hockey, There's a lot of what you see in hockey right now is Black ideas, Black originations, and actually that transcended even stronger through the whole sports gamut. And I have some of that featured in both of those documentaries. And those were like private run. The NHL ran that in their Black History Month. They had a mobile truck with American Legacy magazine that they went to 22 different cities and ran that. And Toyota kind of did a similar thing. So I have these projects finishing up now. Then I have a new documentary that I'm doing out of Wilmington, Delaware, that really goes into the racial and social fabric of Wilmington and how it's in a challenged position right now, and it leads the country in the murder rate and crime rate, and just there's a lot of history behind it in regards to KKK's involvement, in regards to Black folks as being done dirty, the racial component that a lot of laws that didn't allow the folks to get education. So I'm working right now with a few big partners on that project, and I'm going to also direct and produce that. But this project here with that that we're doing here in Pelham. We received a grant from the Picture House. I pitched them. I was documenting a lot of what happened in the spirit of activism last year. Mina was a big part of it. We both spoke at rallies together. We both spoke at vigils together, and I was documenting and had some of my camera folks just capturing all of it. And I told the Picture House that I want to take a deeper dive. And Mina was telling me about her project for a minute now, and I thought it'd be a great way to collaborate and let her know that spirit and that energy she put forth, we could still pick it up and run with it. So like she said, it's going to be bigger and better now, and looking forward to finishing that project.
So, talk about what y'all are doing with the Juneteenth, revolving around Juneteenth in Pelham, and how that got started.
I got started right here. I'm the only Black member of the board on the council. The Pelham Arts the Pelham Council of the Arts, and that got started by the mayor here, Chance Mullen. He's a visionary, good friend of mine, and he told me from the beginning. He said, he always believed in art being a good way to mend and heal, and so he invited me to be on the Pelham Arts Council. And the first thing I said is, we need to do a Juneteenth event. And I told Mina that because Mina's like, we all need to be conduits here. And the mentorship is it's just like anything, so it's a two-way relationship. And it's conduit. Mina's a strong leader for everyone that's, her age range and younger. And she's a strong pulse. Everyone, all the young folks here, talk to like, man, Mina was like, she was it. In high school, she was it. She was doing it, and now she's come back to even do it. So I told her, I was like, hey, we gotta get the young folks out here. We have to get a lot of people behind this. And she reached out and had a good conversation with you guys. But yeah, started right here. Mina was a part of the Pelham United rally here. We were all in this fabric, and I said, what if we mess around and get a Juneteenth celebration in Pelham? Like, people be like, what the heck? And
right. Pelham doing a Juneteenth event. What are the odds?
Yeah. But I tip my hat, all credit. Chance Mullen, the mayor, he actually got us, some funding, got us a little budget behind it too, and so, yeah, the Juneteenth event is going to be a day of festivities, a day of learning, a day of we have different art. Some of the art that some of the kids in the high school putting together is tremendous. We have spoken word artists coming. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure you guys know about the African Healing Circle out of Mount Vernon with Abishai, his group of drummers. That's family. We got them coming, doing some drumming. We got Ayaba Igbo Mandingo. He's a great artist and performer. He's doing a 1-hour set as well. We got DJ, music specials. We got some of the restaurants that collaborate for drink specials, all at Wolf's Lane Park. It's going to be, a big, how we do, big festival, big celebration. And we got a few good speakers as well coming through to just get us in that spirit of liberation.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see Pelham's first Juneteenth event and to see all the Black and brown people come out. And I think it is a step in the right direction for Pelham, because growing up, I always thought Pelham was like this mini white man's land. So for them to be able to recognize themselves and be like, we have power to put an event forward that not the neighboring towns don't really have. I never knew Mount Vernon having a Juneteenth event. I never knew of New Rochelle having a Juneteenth event. So, and I feel like now they do. Yeah. Now they do. I know before, Mount Vernon, but growing up, I didn't see that. Yeah. And now I think it's pivotal, because it shows that white folks need to put in the labor and the work to make change, and that Black people can take a step back and rest and enjoy and celebrate and rejuvenate themselves, because we've done the work for too long. And though that this is a platform for us to shine, it's them actually putting in the money for it, having the space for it, and I think that needs to be celebrated as well, because Black people have been through too much and need some co-conspirators to come forward and allies to come forward and do the work for us, because we're tired.
I have to say, I've been pleasantly surprised with some of the stuff going on in Pelham lately. Last year, actually, July 1st, 2020, a group of the Pelham Democratic Committee wrote a letter to the Pelham elected officials calling for racial justice in Pelham. And they wrote this big letter, and they made sure they sent it to me. And they sent it to all the elected officials. And Pelham was also one of the first municipalities I heard from when Governor Cuomo said that each municipality had to come up with this report about criminal justice reform and have it in by a certain time. Pelham was actually one of the first municipalities I heard from. So there's a lot more work to do, but I'm pleasantly surprised that there's an effort being made, that I wanted to help shed a little light on for Pelham.
No, I want definitely, we want people to know that. And I'm also on the steering committee for racial justice and diversity in Pelham, and we're the ones that put together that report. We came up with a 45-page report. We had countless hours with the police chief, countless hours with the superintendent of schools, countless hours with members of the administration, and those only BIPOC members on that steering committee, which that had gotten a lot of flack as well. And but we didn't want the voice, and we didn't want anything to be diluted. And like I said, and that's also, I tip my hat off to Mayor Chance Mullen. He I call him anytime when there's some, it's like, it feels like I'm almost like the Black mayor, because I call him anytime like I see that there's a need, or a voice that needs to be heard in the BIPOC community, and his door is open. And so, yeah, I've worked on that committee. It was about 6 months of 5.5 months of 1 hour, 2-3 hours every single week, once a week, to come up with those right guidelines and to be first, and that's just a lot of good work from the people of the BIPOC community here. They're very vocal. You have different groups here that are very strong. Crystal Howell was a member of that. She's a Mount Vernon girl that came here to Pelham, and she's one of the leaders of the Bridges group, which is the Black mothers that have kids in the school system. So there's a lot of unity that's coming through, and Mina with Pelham United and just her connections with all the youth. We got to hear from a lot of people, and Pelham is, it is surprising. Trust me.
Right. Because I knew Pelham back in the days. We used to say Pelham was the street between Mount Vernon and New Rochelle. You had to go through. So
Yeah.
and I had relatives from New Rochelle that moved to Pelham, but it was definitely different from when we were growing up. And I have covered some stories. There have been things in the recent history, some situations. So I was just glad to see, and that y'all had reached out to me with the report, and then even the mayor's response, where they were open to how can we, what can we do to make the situation better. Like, they were reaching out for ideas and recommendations, and I don't know how far y'all have gotten from last year to now, but I ran that.
We completed that whole process.
Yeah.
We presented it to the town, and we had real changes taking place. We're getting body cams now on the police officers. We have changes in the educational system. We had a racial equity audit that came through from NYU.
Yeah, I was just part of their leader summit. I saw some of the people speaking up for Pelham, the young women, the seniors and sophomores. Wow, Pelham is part of this. Sorry, I'm just that was not a thing when I was in high school. If you spoke about race when I was in high school.
And I think this is part of even, Mina could definitely speak on this as well. It's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to do nothing. Even the folks that we interviewed for the documentary, a lot of folks are just like, it's like I gotta work, I gotta feed my kids, I gotta worry about paying a mortgage, and I also gotta worry about, also gotta fight for my humanity and my dignity and make sure my voice is heard. Like, it becomes tiring, and trust me, it does. And to see young folks like Mina, and I mean, we even have some young white folks that have that spirit of activism that they just keep going. And when you mix it in, like myself, I come in and we all you got to be a force and know that when you come from truth and you come in the spirit of righteousness, that even whatever energy you put out there, someone else is going to grab it. Other people it's going to be bowed to recognition at some point. And I think a lot of folks in these towns, a lot of folks within Westchester, we need to do that. We need to keep pushing the urge in whatever ways we can. Whether it be through filmmaking, whether it be through legislature, whether it be through boots on the ground activism, whatever it is. It's an additional responsibility, and it feels like additional work on top of our day-to-day lives that we've been set forth and set behind, on an uneven playing field. But for the other folks, for folks that might be listening, I might see, I hope it's motivation, I hope it's inspiration, seeing what Mina started and seeing what I've been able to help and contribute and actually get effectualized and effectuated. Effectuated is remarkable, because like you guys know, I tell folks all the time, Pelham, I never had a good reputation in Pelham, ever.
Right.
So
right.
Everyone I spoke to, there's not a black person I spoke to in Mount Vernon or in anywhere that doesn't have a Pelham story, that doesn't have a police story, that didn't have there wasn't a black person in schools that didn't have a story in the school.
Yeah.
I want to get the conversation back into. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
No, I was going to say
Bob.
that the work that you guys are doing to launch Juneteenth celebration in the city of Pelham, I think, is important for a number of reasons, but I think you just alluded to it, Jeff. That is a reminder of the immense accomplishments of previous generations of African Americans to overcome far more daunting circumstances than the really dire circumstances that we face today. One of the things that I am deeply concerned by is conversations that I'm having all the time with my fellow African Americans, in which people repeatedly raise reasons why we can't manage to overcome the challenges that we're confronting today. And that kind of defeatism, I think, separate and apart from any kind of effort that our foes may make, is in fact one of the major internal obstacles that we've got to confront, and we've got to redouble our commitment to the challenges that we face, knowing full well that in the past, people did so under daunting circumstances today. Having said that, that's a bit more philosophical. Having said that, I'm curious, you guys mentioned quite a number of different kinds of events and programming that you're doing for Juneteenth. For example, you mentioned an art exhibition. For our audience members who may be unfamiliar with Pelham, may not visit often, can you give them any specifics about the exact location of where they can go to the art exhibition, for example? Any well-known up-and-coming artists that they might, expect to see displays from?
Yeah, we have everything. Just real quick, everything is happening at Wolf's Lane Park. It's the park that has a globe with a fountain in it. It's right across the street from the Pelham train station. Now, there are two parks. Like, you have the train station tracks. One side, you have this park with a gazebo in it, and the other side, you have Wolf's Lane Park. It's not the gazebo park. It's Wolf's Lane Park. And it comes up on the Google Maps and stuff. It's across the street from the Rockwell's restaurant there. And it's Wolf's Lane Park. All the events are happening there. There's some some short films that are going to be shown. Our film is supposed to be shown that day also, but we're going to show a teaser, and then we're going to have a whole separate event for the film, just to also let you guys be aware. I don't know if you guys were aware. and which we want, we'll invite you to and everything. And that's going to be at the Picture House. But everything for the Juneteenth is going to be happening right there. And, and Masad David, he has a sculpture that we just erected right now. That's going to be featured there as well. And he's a super dope, talented artist out of Brooklyn. And Ayaba Mandingo is a super talented artist. I've seen him twice at Harlem Arts Festival. I've seen him also off Broadway. He's a good friend of mine. I'm excited for him to come and perform. And the art from the high school kids is tremendous. I got a sneak peek of it day before yesterday. It blew my mind. It straight up blew my mind what they're doing. And then Abishai and Pita and a bunch of the African Healing Circle drummers, they're coming through for libations, and then we're gonna have a DJ and food and just party out, just enjoy and celebrate.
Well, I have to say, speaking of Brother Abishai, realize now that we share a common lineage. As I'm never tired of boasting, I was raised under Abishai's tutelage when he was the director of the CAG camp at the formerly known as Nathan Hale School in the 1970s in Mount Vernon. And, I can never overstate or express my gratitude to Brother Abishai enough for the personal interest that he took in me as a young person at a time when I was experiencing a lot of personal challenges. And so I now recognize the spirit of resistance that all of us kind of embody here, because we know that is one of Abishai's long-lasting legacies.
Oh, big shout out to Abishai is my cousin. So like I said, he's family. It's family, and he's featured in our documentary as well. He has a story from the 60s, where he got pulled over and police officers called him a boy. One of those stories here in Pelham. So he's going to be in the documentary as well. But come guys, come out at the Juneteenth event. He's going to be rocking out there full garb, with a few other folks, part of his circle.
Now, you mentioned a documentary that you and Mina are working on together, and Mina also told AJ and I about it when we met her several weeks ago. Could you tell us the tentative title, give us a summary? And we were hoping, we want to play a trailer as well. I'm not going to look at Mina funny.
No, all this Mina, I was keeping Mina abreast, and all this is literally
There's
happening.
been a lot of movement going on with the trailer and the date and stuff like that. So you don't have to look at me funny. I'm gonna just look at Jeff. But so there's been a lot of, like he said, we were supposed to be showing the documentary on Juneteenth, but due to contractual stuff, we will be showing a teaser on Juneteenth, and then later having a bigger event for the actual documentary, which will probably have a better turnout, and we could do more with it being at a later date. But,
straight up. I mean, we wanted this documentary actually got bigger. Like we were been working on it. We just shot some amazing students on Friday before yesterday. And I mean, we just continue to pour into it, and it deserved. I think I wanted to be. We're going to do it as a marquee event at nighttime for Juneteenth, but then with some contractual issues, like Mina said, that the Picture House had with the movie that just came out, In the Heights. They had to show In the Heights those periods of time, so they're going to put the documentary at 3:00. And we would have like a shortened Q&A session. And this thing here is really powerful and explosive. And I think that I wanted it to death. And I told Mina, we think, in regards to whether we should still do a Juneteenth. The spirit of me wanted to still do it in Juneteenth, but, we thought that it should we wanted to have its own night. And more importantly, I didn't want the Q&A session to be something that was mitigated or cut short, like, oh, okay, you guys only got half hour, then let's leave.
That's an intro. 30 minutes a Q&A is an intro for what we gotta say.
for everything that we've been dealing with and going with this documentary, for certain. So it was a good thing. It gives us more time to continue to add to it and to polish it and make it a great project. And then also we're gonna have it's gonna have its own night where it's just the night is just about the documentary, and we can make it bigger, and we could have longer periods of time and invite folks to the picture house, invite press, invite whoever interested in coming. And I know we're gonna have more than there. We're actually gonna do a multi-night engagement as well. And each night we're going to be doing a Q&A session and just giving our truth, about the whole thing.
Yeah. So don't blame me, Dr. Bob. Blame the politics that be.
I understand about politics.
I think it's all good though. Sometimes you hear politics
also
got negative connotation. I think it's all for the good reasons, all for the right
divine
reasons.
alignment.
And then also, I'm gonna have my camera people at the Juneteenth event covering that celebration being as unprecedented. And I want to get interviews from people there. Like, did you ever think Pelham would have a Juneteenth event? And we're gonna put that into the last few minutes of the documentary. So.
I wanted to say you were talking about the Pelham Picture House. I've been happy to see that they're putting more African American stuff in there. Like we saw the Exonerated Five. They had the Q&A for 2 weeks. They had and that was great. They showed the actual documentary, and then they had Yusef Salam and others come 1 week, and then they had his mother and others come the next week. And we need more of that. And it's interesting that Pelham is taking the lead in stuff like that right now. Like you would expect like a Mount Vernon something to be.
Listen, Pelham,
but it's interesting that Pelham is taking the lead to do some of these things. So I've been impressed of some of the stuff.
As they should take the lead.
Good.
I'm really big on white people dismantling the system that they built. So they should be taking the lead on the system and the gatekeeping and the barbed wires that they have. They should be taking the lead and dismantling it and undoing it and making that sacrifice, as they should do their work.
And for my component, I can't. I'm not going to say anything. Sometimes it's difficult in some of the other areas, especially like my hometown. It's the folks here are well organized, and right now it's finding. It's almost being wherever you need to be to make that change happen. And Mina being here from such a young age, she thinks it's long overdue. For me, I think everything is in process, and like I said before, I think as people of color, and for those that are called to leadership, for those that answer that call, just keep pushing and just keep moving in the way that you need to move, because you will see things happen, and don't take it no for an answer. And the folks here at Pelham, big shout out to the Picture House. Laura Dubuis, the executive director there, very open and engaged. And like Mina always says, she always corrects me. She's like, no, we don't need allies. We need co-conspirators. We need folks that are willing to sacrifice or put their neck out a little bit as well. And they have. I gave them the idea for this thing, and I told them the budget we needed, and the deal was done. The deal was done in a week. And I think that like I said, for leader, we need more leaders to step up, even on the community level. There's not going to be any one Martin Luther King that everybody, it's like, black folks are just sitting and waiting for, one Malcolm, that he's going to open the doors for everybody. No, it has to happen in cells, it has to happen in your local communities, and then with the internet and with social media, we can all communicate together and get that momentum together. Hopefully folks in Larchmont and Mamaroneck and Rye and Harrison and Bronxville and Eastchester, can see the same thing happening, so it's there. And it's our truth that we need to reclaim.
Well, that gives me an opportunity to present another ally leader from one of the cities that you did not mention, Jeff. We're pleased to have in the studio today Tuesday Paige McDonald, who is the executive director of the Youth Bureau in the city of Peekskill, and is also a minister of music at Mount Olivet Baptist Church. I assume, presumably in Peekskill as well. Ms. McDonald is taking the lead in the Juneteenth celebration, and we can see that she is ready from the banner that she's got emblazoned behind her. This is, I think, the first time that either AJ or I have met Ms. McDonald. AJ can correct me if I'm wrong, and so it's an immense pleasure to have Ms. McDonald on air to join us and tell us about some of the Juneteenth celebrations that are going on in the more northern, I guess, cities in Westchester.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about tonight and just speaking a little bit about what's going on in Peekskill. So Peekskill is really no stranger to Juneteenth. This is actually our 11th celebration. Last year, unfortunately, as everyone as well, we had to go virtual. But I believe it must have been a year that White Plains had decided to take, a break from it. And at that time, the former executive director, Valerie Swan, said, you know what, we should do one in Peekskill. And the whole city just rallied behind her. And we were able to have our first parade and festival at the Riverfront Green, which has brought thousands of people to Peekskill. And when I became the executive director 3 years ago, I just joined right in. Not only was it the Youth Bureau, but they also formed a Juneteenth Heritage Committee, maybe I think about 5-6 years ago. And that's had a lot of success. So this year we're limited, right? Like everyone else, we're limited because of COVID. And we are kicking off. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to speak about it right now? Kind of like what I'm going to do. Okay. So we are kicking off our Juneteenth on June 19th at 11 a.m. at the Youth Bureau with a, we're going to have a brunch for a Grand Marshal brunch is what we're calling it. Of course, keeping it, very intimate, because of COVID. And we're going to leave there. We're going to go to DePue Park. We were kind of back and forth, knowing that we really couldn't get away with having a parade, in Peekskill. They certainly wasn't going for that. But I did advocate and see what we could do. We came together and we said what we would do is we would have a Freedom Day at DePue Park, an opportunity to kind of still come together, celebrate, but also to kind of keep it condensed, if you will. So we're going to kick off at 1 p.m. with a parade of partners. And that's when we have the opportunity to not have a parade, of course, because we'll be on a track, but we'll be able to kind of liken it to the Olympics when everyone's coming in and all of the countries are coming in a parade. And we will announce them, all of our partners will all be seated. We're going to have music and spoken word and dance and libation. And I mean, we're doing it as much as we can in 2 hours, of course. So we're also going to have a band this year. So normally we would have about 5 bands coming from Brooklyn to from Mount Vernon, Brooklyn, New York City. But we were only able to get 1 this year. That's the X Factor coming from Mount Vernon this year. So we're really excited. But I think about 25 of them are actually coming this year. And, dancers, elected officials, the partners. Someone actually had called me and said, well, how many people do you think is going to be in attendance? I said, I have no idea. I dare not say the number just in case the police try to shut it down. So we're just going to let it happen. It's going to have fun, celebrate.
I wanted to say, and I always enjoy doing this, where I can bring people together from different communities. I remember there was a scene in one of the Terminator movies where the guy was on the like walkie-talkie, and he said, "If you can hear my voice, you too are part of the resistance. There are pockets of us everywhere, and now it's time for us to unite." You understand what I'm saying? Like we have a lot of people doing the work in Peekskill and Yonkers and New Rochelle, and I wish I had more of them here today. But I enjoy when I can connect people. So if I can connect Peekskill and Pelham, like you know what I'm saying today, that's a beautiful thing, and for our audience, you know.
So someone in White Plains I love. He actually reached out to all of the municipalities that he knew anyway were doing Juneteenth celebrations, and he brought us together in December. So I was with, I think it was Habershaw, Irvington, White Plains, Yonkers, Peekskill. I believe that those were all the ones. So therefore, we kind of came together and we did a kickoff June 1st, a virtual kickoff with all of those towns and villages. And that was really awesome. I mean, did anyone get an opportunity to see that? Arts Westchester actually produced it.
Okay. No, I did not. I did not see that.
Yeah. It was really nice because we got a chance to kind of hear from each other, connect, if you will, and also to kind of see like what are you doing. And I think out of all of those places, White Plains is the only one that chose to do a virtual one, which I know is going to be awesome because everything they always do is really good.
I want to give both of y'all a chance to speak to this. What do you think? And I said you missed the beginning of the show. I said, I spent time around the holiday weekend with my family, and both my sister and my daughter both said they had never known about Juneteenth until they got into college. Like they were not taught that in public schools. What do you think we can do to moving forward to educate, to continue to educate the conversation on what Juneteenth is to our people, especially our youth going forward? And I'll let Tuesday start, and then y'all too.
Listen, as someone who served on the Board of Education for 15 years in Peekskill, it has to start, to me, in the curriculum in the school districts. There's no reason that, our young people do not know about Juneteenth. At the Youth Bureau, we always have a lot of things for them, so we're always educating them. But I have to be honest, it's really not in the schools. And I think that that's where it really, of course, everything begins at home, but certainly in terms of making sure that everyone knows, not just our children, but all children, it needs to start in the schools. It needs to be a part of the curriculum. History.
Definitely agree.
Yeah. Like you said, it all starts at home because I went to school knowing about Juneteenth and telling other Black kids about Juneteenth. Like I said, I wasn't the most liked in school for talking about these things, but I'd be like, why are we celebrating July 4th? That's not my holiday. Juneteenth's my holiday. That's what I'm cooking out. So just knowing that, for me as someone who's just coming out of being a student, before curriculum, because you can learn anything in the curriculum, and I feel like at certain points, what you learn at home overrides that. Not to take away from it being learned in school, because I think that's also very important. But from what I see in a lot of white and non-Black people of color is that it doesn't matter what they learn in school as long as what their mom and dad tells them is their truth, and what they go home to is their truth, and what they build their foundations on. So if we learn about it in school, that helps, especially for people who aren't Black, who aren't brown, and come from a Juneteenth background, rather. But for it to be celebrated in our homes, so maybe not celebrating 4th of July, and if someone's saying why, it's because we celebrate June 19th. And in making that a big deal at home, every June 19th, every year you're having a cookout, and being silent on July 4th, and switching that narrative of what that means for us and our freedom.
I like that.
I like that. And unfortunately, if a lot of people in my generation were not taught about it in school and did not go to college and learn about it, they can't teach it to their kids because they don't know about it. So that that's why I think
this is important too. I mean, even just these events and these celebrations here, so it's something that's going to reach out and touch people. And people are going to interact with it, and that leaves a deeper impression, a stronger impression than even just sometimes just reading it or going over it in a class for 10 minutes, in a section of a book. So it's things touch people different ways, and so I think it's if we could just continue to build upon it, whether it be by word of mouth, whether it be through institutional education and the school curriculums, whether it be like I was just walking by the park and I saw this thing, and that was the first time I ever got in contact or got connected to Juneteenth. It's if we could, the more we do, the better, and I think all this and these discussions are all part of it.
I started the show reading an article by former President Lena Anderson of the Greenberg White Plains NAA, that I posted in the comment section. Now, for those who do not know what Juneteenth is, can y'all just give us what Juneteenth means to you? Just a little breakdown, because there's people that still don't know what Juneteenth is.
Well, I mean, for me, it started in Texas, or in near the Galveston area, at least from what I've known and researched. There are a couple of different, I guess, hypotheses that I've seen, but they're all kind of in the same spirit in regards to Abraham Lincoln abolishing slavery, but it not reaching all Black communities until I think 2.5 years later, 3 years later,
or more. I heard in Florida in some cases they didn't get to it until like 5, 7, 8 years later.
Wow. Yeah, and in Texas, but then I guess in Galveston in Texas, it got to them about close to 3 years later, and for them, that's when the celebration really happened, and in regards to the spirit of liberation that was set forth, and for me and for what I was taught, especially when I was speaking with, I don't know if you guys know Dr. Larry Spruill.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm pushing. I'm trying to get him to come out to the Juneteenth. He's very cautious about the whole COVID situation and everything. But he's feeling more comfortable now, and I want to have him speak as well at the Pelham Juneteenth. But he kept reiterating to me, Jeff, just make sure that you do it in the spirit of liberation, in the spirit of feeling that liberation. And I think even that spirit here for even towns like, I know Peekskill. I mean, I've been to Peekskill many times. There's a strong Black contingent in Peekskill. But even towns like Pelham that are almost like a monoculture, a lot of the folks here, they feel that sense of liberation as well, just being able to feel strong that there's a platform and that they can feel a part in learning and celebrating, and something that could be cool for us or good for us and uplifting for us, and I think that even in that, I mean, it's like I always say, you got Black folks I see dressing up in friggin' green shirts, for St. Patrick's Day to go for St. Patrick's Day, and they go on to get tacos and drinking up Coronas, for Cinco de Mayo. And I think this doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be all educational, but even just a remembrance, a celebration of even just the fact that even when we earned and fought for our liberation and state our claim in it, it still was delayed for a lot of the brothers and sisters that had to endure even more, which they shouldn't have.
So we have a strong contingent in Peekskill, but a lot still did not know what Juneteenth was, and unfortunately, even now. So you have some people, I don't know if they were sleeping, but you have some people, like, what's Juneteenth? Like what are you guys celebrating? And it looked like me, so, I don't know. I guess I just don't understand it sometimes. It's almost like, are you sleeping? Or, are you woke? I'm like, what's going on? Dr. Spruill, he actually was a keynote speaker for that countywide kickoff that I was talking about earlier. He was just simply amazing. I mean, I could have listened to him for like an hour. He was just so good, just so knowledgeable, and those are the keynote speakers that we need to always be listening to, because that's how you get to learn more and learn more and learn more. And I want to make sure I'm going to find a way from Arts Westchester to see how, I can actually show that recording of Dr. Sproul speaking
Yeah.
For the keynote, because it was really powerful.
Yeah,
And
he told me about that recording. I talked to him the day after he did it. Yeah.
And for the people who don't really, I think there's a lot of people who don't really care for history of things. And like, because that's not everyone's things. Like, oh, Juneteenth started in here and then it took this long. How I always saw it was that that's when my ancestors were freed. That's when they were able to do more for themselves and be able to walk with their own names, with their own bodies. So if it's not for anything else, Juneteenth is the reason why you're here as a Black person. It's why your lineage was able to keep breathing. It's why your blood was able to keep flowing, regardless of where it started, where it ended, how long it took. It's why you're here.
That's
So
right.
it's just celebrating our ancestors the same way we're taught to celebrate the forefathers of this country. Then we're celebrating our forefathers of freedom.
Yeah, and they fought for our freedom and they won it. It wasn't, it wasn't just something that they just decided to just wake up one day and be like, hey, okay, just out of graciousness of our heart, we're gonna give this freedom. We aren't supposed to look at it like that. We have
Blood was shed.
Blood was shed. They fought for it, and if it wasn't for the strength of a lot of the Black soldiers, even during the Civil War, it would have been a whole different outcome in the first place, and this country would have had a whole different trajectory. But
Independence Day.
We've seen that plenty of times where Black folks had to come save America from itself. So.
And it's funny, the story of Juneteenth, where even after the Emancipation Proclamation, the information was delayed, and it's still in 2021 when people don't know what Juneteenth is. The information is still being delayed. And that's why I want to applaud y'all for what y'all are doing. And when Bob brought up addressing Juneteenth, I definitely wanted to do this because we have to keep the conversation going. We got to keep educating people, because even this conversation, and as we share it on the website and it goes out and gets blasted out, there will be people who will be seeing this for the first time, who will be hearing this for the first time, that will be just experience. Oh, that's what that is. You know what I'm saying? And not realizing the historical value of it.
I just want us to make sure that we realize and keep it in the context of strength and liberation.
This is the first year that New York State is recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday. 2021 is the first year that Juneteenth is being a recognized holiday.
And shout out to Stephanie. I saw her put in the comments as well. Every year we learn about the Holocaust. Every single year to make sure we don't forget about the Holocaust. But what has been done here in this own country? What has been done right here with the members and contingents of this nation that built this nation, to remember and celebrate them and us. So let's just keep it going. I can't. We're all not going to change the past right now. We only can look forward to the future, but that history, one thing is a great deception where people will try to mitigate and minimize the importance of history, because that thing will cycle right back up and enslave you to the very things that you were ignorant to want to learn about.
And I also wanted to just give shout outs. We mentioned Brother Abishai. We mentioned Dr. Sproul. Yeah, those are, he's definitely a historian. We have to. I said this a couple about 10 years ago. We lost a brother New Rochelle, Napoleon Holmes, and it was like I got a chance to talk to him a little bit, but I felt bad that I did not sit at his feet and devour all that knowledge, like he died with all that knowledge. You know what I'm saying? We have to take advantage of our elders when they're like Brother Abishai will kick it with you when you're out there. You know what I'm saying? We gotta take advantage of our gaining all the knowledge we can from them. So when they die, that doesn't all just die with them. And then we have to be the conduit to the next generation of sharing that knowledge, because it wasn't history books how our people used to learn. It was through
Word of mouth.
From generation to generation to generation of our knowledge, and we have to get back to that.
Mentorship is so important. Like I always I don't give you enough praise. Like I'm so grateful for you. You know,
Oh,
I'm
no.
a little emotional, so I'm not gonna cry or nothing like that. But I think for a while, especially growing up in Pelham, I felt lost because I didn't have anyone to look up to or look forward to speaking to about my experience. That's why Mr. Barcelona was so important to me, to see another, and Miss Archer, and to see other Black adult bodies living, so I can be like, I feel safe. I have someone who looks like me. And it's not even about representation, because sometimes representation can be harmful, as we're seeing with like the Kamala Harris immigration stuff like that. That's another conversation. But anyways, mentorship in the Black community is vital, because if it wasn't for people encouraging me and telling me to keep going, I would have kept my head down. Even we interviewed some high schoolers, and they said like sometimes they just feel like they just keep their head down. They don't want to be looked at. They don't want to be talked to. They feel stifled in discovering their identity. And I keep telling them, keep your head up, because then you won't see what's going on around you, and it will be to your detriment. But if it wasn't for like Jeff finding me and like, oh, I got this, because I was gonna give up on film altogether at some point. I was like, forget this. Like, this is a lot of work. There's so many gatekeeping, especially for Black and brown, especially for Black women. So if it wasn't for like Jeff or like other Black and brown mentors that I've had in my life to keep going, or even seeing like you, Dr. Bob, and you, AJ, doing this, and you, Miss McDonald, like it is encouraging, because like I'm here now, but if I didn't see people ahead of me, I wouldn't know what to look forward to. I wouldn't know what to look forward to. I would just be like kind of winging it. And then seeing high schoolers look up to me, I'm like, they're getting tired. I'm like, you have to keep going, because now I know it's worth it, because someone showed me it was worth it. So I want to see more mentorship in the Black and brown communities. And I know it's out there, but I want to see it spread and widen, just like we need to for our history and Juneteenth to widen.
Yeah, and don't be shy. There's a couple of things that just hearing Mina speak, and she talked about, our history has been taught through the storytellers, through the chiefs. Even with Chad Bozeman, the name of our company was Son of the Griots, and I was not the man I am right now when I met him. And Chad was on a whole different level. Like, Chad was running in that. I mean, that dude was Black Panther and Wakanda. I mean, I'm talking about 2007 when we had gotten together to 2009. I looked up to him, and he named the company Son of the Griots. And I was like, what the heck is a griot? And he was like, it's a storyteller. And he was like, that's what I am. I'm a son of the griots. Like, everything he did was was like, transmitting through the ancestors. And I took a bit of that in my admiration for that, and that's when I just started getting into my spiritual and cultural awareness. But I think one thing that the spirit taught me, and I live by this every day, is that, one thing I want to share with Black folks is we can't be stingy. We can't be selfish. We see too much predicated upon this financial matrix world where it's like, you make your money, then you hoard it, and then you retire, and you just want to keep it to your family. And, and there's no giving back. A lot of the brothers that, I'm a graduate of the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, which is a high tier education, and I went to I was in Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, and I was part of the Black affinity groups there in Wall Street. But it's like everybody, they come from, my boys come from Acres Homes in Houston. My other boys come from Liberty City in Miami. But as soon as we get some money, it's like we go want to live in the rich white areas so far away from the hood. Don't ever go back. Don't ever contribute back. And I continue to implore upon them, like, how the hell you think the next generation of you is ever going to see that they could be you if you're not there, if they don't see you? And for Black folks to not be stingy, that everything, like in the dynamic that I mentioned before, like everything doesn't have to happen in your lifetime. You got to understand that our connectivity and our spirit lasts way longer than whatever is in our body, like whatever this body could hold, and I know I'm planting seeds, and Mina's planting seeds, and I continue to remind her this all the time. Like, we're going to plant seeds that I know I might not even be alive to see bear fruit. That doesn't scare me, and that doesn't make me stingy about it either. Like, I know that my spirit is going to be healed from it. I know that the Lord and the Creator is going to look and be like, you did what you had to do. and I'm going to see it from a different lens. I'm going to see it from a different vantage point. But I don't need to be here to see it. And I think a lot of us are like, oh, what am I going to get out of it? And what, like they're thinking about, oh, I got to do for me and mine. And you just got to move in that fulfillment. And I think that's where it starts. You got to move in that fulfillment that you got to feel that level of fulfillment, of mentorship, getting back to your community, going back to where you grew up, and dedicating, even if it's just a few hours a week or a few hours a month. I mean, starting, just putting that first foot forward and not being stingy. That well, I don't know what I'm doing. I just know that I got to do this. And I think one person at a time, like, you don't understand if 10% of Black folks or 10% of even quote unquote successful Black folks just did that and put that in their consciousness, how much more elevated we'd be as people.
Absolutely.
Way more elevated.
Yeah.
I see Tuesday shaking her head. I wanted to give you a chance to speak.
No, listen, I'm just loving what I'm hearing, from both of your guests. Just awesome. I mean, it's amazing. Like when you talk about, sometimes, us being a little stingy, not willing to really, either come back after college or come back after we, spend our time in the service or, a trade. I think for some people, I think that they get scared. It's almost like, I've made it, I mean, like I have no business kind of coming back to that, community that may not even done right by them. So I think that for some, but for others, when you say that word stingy, I mean, like that's, so true, because when you come back, I mean, listen, I run a youth borough. Okay. So I'm always looking for people to come and be those role models to our students and give back, to the youth borough, because many of them actually, were students there at the youth borough, so why not, come back? But I have to say, on a really good note, we do have, those young people who went to the youth borough, went to college, did well, went to service, did well, and they are coming back. I wish we had more, but I just wish that, more people really felt the need to come back, to their communities and do what they need to do. Listen, I'm born and raised here, went to college, undergrad, went to college, grad, and it was almost like something was kind of calling me back, to Peekskill, to come back here, spent 15 years on the Board of Education, then years later became the ED for the youth borough. And I could not be happier, being back in the community that deposited so much in me. Like, they talk about the village raising a child. I was raised by the village. I was raised by my dad, incredible man, but certainly it's the village that poured into me. And the reason why I can sit here, on this show, with this distinguished guest and distinguished host, because they poured into me. So I love what you're saying, and I hope that more people really take heed to coming back to the community, whether they stay here or not, but come back and deposit back into your community what was deposited into you.
Yes, healing is in community.
Right. I agree 100%. I mean, even what we're doing with Black Westchester, which is a labor of love. I mean, I've been an entertainment journalist. I mean, I could have had a music-based publication dealing with all the entertainment and stuff, and it'd be on the newsstands, and I'd be making money hand over fist with advertising. But when you do this community-based, some people don't see the value of it. Some people don't want to support it, but it's a labor of love because we saw that it was needed. Someone to speak for us, someone who can help change the narrative, someone who can give a spotlight and a platform for y'all to speak and highlight the things that y'all are doing. So, I mean, that's why we started this 7 years ago. And, I had to learn, coming from the entertainment business, if the numbers are not good the first week or the second week, or, for a movie or for a book or for an album or something, they drop it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you don't get that support. But the work that we do it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You just got to keep working on it and keep working on it. And there's times you're gonna be like, man, is anybody paying attention? And, you feel like you want to give up, like you're not being, nobody's even noticing. But you'd be surprised, if you just affect one or two people, You know what I'm saying? And someone sees something in one of the guests today, and it inspires them to be the next, you know what I'm saying, the next generation of truth speakers or whatever. Then I feel like I've done my job. So
You gotta feel that. I mean, I think it's, for me, it all came from my spiritual awakening and the divine gift of gratitude that was placed, in my heart. And because, like, when you get that gratitude, it becomes a responsibility to pay it forward. It becomes a responsibility to open up doors for others, because it's like I just see how much I've been graced by, and I just want to continue to be the grace that was shown upon me. And so it really becomes a responsibility. Like, and it, I feel bad, like, I mean, first thing when I got the grant, first thing I did was call up Mina. I was like, yo, I was like, we on, like, and I called her out of nowhere. Like, I was in Dominican Republic for 4 months working on another film, and I came back here in the first 3 weeks. I was like, hey, remember that thing you wanted to do? We're going to do it, and we're going to add to it, so it becomes a responsibility that at that point it's just within you. Like, you don't need anyone to push you. You don't need anyone to lead you, and just wanting to do more, for the next generation, do more for those that have blessed you. And it goes back and forth, like I would feel bad to my mentors. Dr. Sproul's a mentor to me. Billy Thomas out of Mount Vernon is a mentor to me. I'd feel bad as much as they've deposited in me, for me to not turn around and be in that same grace and gratitude that was given to me. So, for a lot of folks out there, I think a lot of times, we don't sit down and just pay attention, to our spirit. We don't sit down and think about gratitude. We don't sit down and think about the things that are happening. Every week, I write all the things that I'm in gratitude for this week as it's happening. And then at the end of the week, later tonight, I'm going to sit down and read about them and then think about, well, how can I be that for someone else, or keep that in my mind. It's just, we gotta move on the spiritual level and devoid ourselves. And that's like you said, AJ, like, I could have stayed in Wall Street. I mean, I was making $250,000 a year at 27 years old. At this point, I'd be well over $600-700 grand, where I am if I would just stayed on my same trajectory. But that wasn't calling to my spirit. I think I can make probably many more amount. I'm going to make many more times that and what I'm doing, but it takes patience. But you have to have that. You have to trust that. Trust in that. And I think what everyone is doing here, there's a level of fulfillment that comes from it. That it doesn't matter, like, whether you get the financial compensation that people think is good for you, or if you made it or not. You feel that level of fulfillment that no one can take away. No one can take away. Because trust me, at Merrill Lynch, I met a lot of people that were worth tens and hundreds of millions of dollars that were miserable. Miserable people. Miserable. They look at me and they'd want to get my spirit and energy. Like, Jeff, man, how you just? I wish I was like that. Like, go to bed miserable.
Right. Dr. Bob.
Yes, I was going to say that one of the dimensions of struggle that has been underscored by leaders is cultural struggle and the need for African Americans to identify life-affirming values. Certainly one of the messages that I heard from Brother Abishai, amongst others. And I think that gives us a perspective from which to evaluate the importance of Juneteenth, a kind of popular cultural movement to invoke our own heroes and the kind of values that entitle a person to recognition as doing something heroic in the first place. In that regard, Tuesday, earlier you had mentioned that the activities that y'all have been undertaking in Peekskill include, I think you said, a Juneteenth Heritage Committee. And yes. I don't hear, I know the observation of Juneteenth has been very uneven over the course of our history as a people. And so, I'm always eager to hear new historical findings. Like, what is that committee focusing on? have you guys made any discoveries about how Juneteenth was observed by the New York State African American community, in particular in the past, maybe even Westchester?
So I believe that when it was first started, honestly, I think they kind of had to go that route because when it first started 11 years ago, it was started by the former executive director, right? So she put it together with amazing committee of concerned citizens who wanted to bring this to Peekskill. So I think probably like her fifth year in, they said we need to actually have a Juneteenth Heritage Committee so that they could kind of do like that truth seeking, a committee that could be there to make sure that they were doing things right in terms of making sure that they were accurate and everything that they were presenting, And then I know that they linked with Sisters in Support. Sisters in Support, who actually are one of our grand marshals for the 19th. They are the ones who are responsible for putting on the Harriet Tubman tours. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with LaFern Joseph, who actually spearheads that. And when Harriet Tubman, of course, and others were on their route for the Underground Railroad, Peekskill actually was one of the sites actually where they went through. And she actually does a tour, and what she does it usually during the spring to summer months. Um, and I know that they work closely with the Heritage Committee to make sure that not only were we doing our Juneteenth celebrations, but also making sure that people were going on the Underground Railroad tours as well, because that's all a part of all of this. So making sure that the history is all interconnected.
Interesting, because it does give us a concrete connection to
Hmm.
Juneteenth and the events that ultimately precipitated our own freedom, and we know that Harriet Tubman played a vital role in that. So, any other kinds of historical discoveries that have been made along the way that you want to share with our audience members? And one thing that occurred to me is the tour being given this year? I know there are restrictions, but that sounds like a fascinating kind of a walking tour to participate in, and I imagine some of our listeners want further
Yeah,
information.
yeah. So normally it would be kind of be in connection, but this year, they actually are one of our grand marshals, so they'll be, kind of tied up. But certainly, I can leave you with information on connecting with Sister LaFern so that I can, so we can know like when those tours are being done. But she does do them, like I said, normally spring, summer months, and they're really, kind of take your breath away. I mean, it really to be a part of that history is amazing, really amazing.
Yes. Now, just for our audience members, we focus. I want to apologize personally because we had a couple of additional guests who were scheduled to come on the show, and unfortunately, through I fumbled the ball a little bit and some scheduling conflicts. So I apologize to our audience members that we haven't had invited guests from two other sister cities here in Westchester County to join us on air. But I did want to bring to everyone's attention the full schedule of known Juneteenth events that are going to be observed this year in Westchester County, just by quickly sharing the page that, from Westchester Arts Westchester, that has what seems to be a fairly comprehensive listing. I'm just going to show it to people very quickly so that they can see it, and maybe that'll do it here. So this is and this is very quickly, everyone. This was from Arch Westchester. You can see that it shows the Juneteenth celebrations by day and by location and by focus throughout the county. Even though we focus on the city of Pelham and Peekskill, there are events, Juneteenth observations going on in New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, which I just found out recently. Yonkers has a big celebration. We were trying to get the leader of the Yonkers Juneteenth activities to come on. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a mix up. So I'm going to share this in the link with our audience members so that in case you want to attend any Juneteenth celebrations, you can find a ready source of information. AJ, if you like, you take over.
Yeah, I just want to say, what I find in situations like this, some things happen organically for a reason. This conversation, like the show was based on Juneteenth and the importance of Juneteenth, and has merged into a great conversation of the Black community and the history of Black people and our struggle. And I think this, some things just organically are meant to be. Like Mina said, she started to work on the documentary back then and it didn't work. Some things are, sometimes there's timing with everything. We have plans. They always say, we have plans, God have plans. It's like sometimes we want to do something, but God already had it worked out for us. He already had this. You were putting in the work, you know what I'm saying? And he was preparing you to meet with Brother Jeff, you know what I'm saying? So that y'all can build whatever it is y'all building. And it's just like some things are meant to happen the way they happen. And
I was gonna say I wasn't even meant to meet Jeff. I remember I was invited to that protest just to teach him meditation because I was just like, I wasn't even thinking about film work anymore. I was like, I'm a yoga teacher and a grief worker, and that's all I'm doing. But then something in me, I was like, nah, I can't sit here and not say what I gotta say. I can't. And then in one moment, I was like, actually, can I speak? And that's the only reason I spoke was because an ancestor came down and says, you better say what you gotta say. And in that one moment, everything changed.
Yeah, you guys should have saw it because
I made people cry.
She was. I was like the second speaker during that rally, and then I just ended up being in the audience. And she was like, "Yeah, we have the MC was like, yeah, we have Mina Simone here to do a yoga to everyone get down." I was like telling everyone to get down on the grass to be able to do a yoga. And then she started speaking, and I remember hearing her and just hearing that energy. And I was like, after she was like one of the second to last.
I was the last speaker.
Yeah, last speaker. And afterwards, I was like shifting through. I was like, I gotta meet her because I felt her energy. I felt her presence. In that, and that's what I said. We just gotta get connected. We gotta get connected to ourselves. We gotta get connected to who we are and how we work. In the spirit.
All orchestrated. Like I want to get to know Tuesday more. Like the way I met AJ and Dr. Bob was by accident. Like someone just invited me to an event, and I was like, sure, I guess I'll go. And so it's always in divine alignment. And I'm so grateful for everyone here. And
I said I was coming back. I had an office in Mount Vernon for 8 years, and I went down to Dominican Republic to produce a project for a few years. And when I came back, my partner at the time, he got the office. I didn't know it was in Pelham. Like me coming here was a mistake. And I was like, what the hell are you getting an office in friggin' Pelham for? Like, what the hell am I being Pelham? Like, I was in Mount Vernon for 8 years in my office. And I was like, whatever. He's like, dude, I already signed the lease or whatever. I was like, I was away, and I was like, all right, whatever. I didn't know, fast forward a few years later, I'd be a part of the leadership and be on the steering committee for racial justice, be on the Pelham Arts Council, be on the, I didn't even know, how I would just help be a part of effectuating change, meeting different folks, so it's a seed doesn't determine sometimes where it's planted. A lot of times we try to control what's happening and we just got to understand that, just moving the process. And
it's bigger than us.
It's bigger than us.
Like Tuesday said, you need to go back to the place that hurts you. And in a lot of places, Black people feel like they don't want to go back to the hood because that's where they were hurt the most. Because I tried to run away from Pelham many times to never come back to Pelham. And here I am. But by the graces of God, I'm happy to be here. So what Tuesday said really resonated. Sometimes you got to go back home and whatever that means.
It's the same thing with Black Westchester. As we approach our 7-year anniversary, I was living in Atlanta for a while, and I only came home to take care of my mom. She had stage 4 cancer, and I spent the last couple of months with her. And it was during that time when my partner Damon, who I had a music company with, came up with the idea, and it just organically turned into what we have now, and hopefully what it will be later. But I had no intentions of doing this before Black Westchester. I was not involved in politics in no way, like a lot of people. My involvement in politics was voting, and I thought I was doing my part, like like a lot of other people, like. And I don't even be voting every year. I mean, I voted for Obama twice and I voted for Clinton twice. That was like literally it. And everything else I did was entertainment based. This is the first non-entertainment based project I've ever worked on. And you touching lives and you're helping people, and it can't always be measured in numbers and dollars and cents sometimes. So I just want to congratulate what y'all are doing, and I wanted to give y'all an opportunity before we break off. Are there websites or social medias where people who are watching this and will watch this can connect to y'all, to your projects or your organizations, to know more about you or work with y'all or whatever?
Yeah, so our information is on City of Peekskill Facebook page, Instagram, as well as City of Peekskill website. So all of our information is there, relating to. Oh, I do want to lift up one more thing.
Absolutely.
So after we have our 1 to 3 festivities at DP Park, we're going to wind down at 6 p.m. with a virtual event by the Peekskill NAACP.
Okay.
It's on a flyer. It's on our website. Everything is there as well. But they are a partner, and I certainly wanted to, just lift them up for the work that they're doing, in Peekskill and their partnership with Juneteenth in Peekskill.
Mm-hmm. Mina Simone.
I'm actually going to be taking a social media detox and cleanse. However, we're working to get you the right information right now.
You're doing all the work to plan it. I'm like, wait.
I'm on my phone. I'm like, actually.
And I wanted to make sure that y'all connect amongst each other as well too. So.
Oh, please.
I definitely want to connect with. I wanted to reach out. I reached out as a Facebook friend to Damon, because I want to invite him to interview, because he was in law enforcement, right?
Yes.
He did a lot of extensive work in justice and bringing a lot of things to justice, and he wrote some things about Pelham Manor that I definitely want to.
Oh, there was a Black Westchester. I probably wrote it.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
I wrote the Pelham Manor stuff with the Pelham Manor police and all of that stuff. I definitely wrote some of the stuff about the racism going on in the police department, and I was. I wrote all of those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just sent my email info@minasimoneyoga.com. If anyone wants to reach out there, that's my yoga website. And stay tuned, because like they said, I'm young and figuring it all out. So hopefully, soon come website, soon come @names. And like I said, that's my email if anyone wants to reach out for whether it's about this or healing and otherwise.
Can we talk about? Can take a brief. I'm coming to the end of the show, but I think it's always important when we're talking about the struggle, when we talk about fighting for equality and educating our people, to talk about healing. There's that component that we leave out. The healing and the taking care of ourselves. And if you can briefly just talk about the importance of yoga and the work that you do, and how important that is to our people.
Yeah, I became a yoga teacher. I've been doing yoga my whole life by accident, LOL. But I came into healing arts because I feel like someone said in the comments, we learn about the Holocaust and we learn about all these great genocides to white people, but Black people never got the chance to grieve and move through our pains and sorrows collectively as a community. And that's one of the biggest thing that stagnates up, is that it's the held emotional and spiritual stagnancy that's held up. So I came into yoga because Black people, for so long we haven't had ownership and autonomy of our bodies, of our breaths, and of our spirits. So I wanted to be able to give that back to the Black community in the ways of yoga and moving our bodies, and through meditation and moving our breaths to connect to our minds, and more so bringing more attention to our grief, because we all talk about how we want to be happy, we want to be joyous, we want to be proud and celebrate, but for so many centuries and years that we haven't actually had the time to like we've been saying, sit down to realize our purpose is sometimes to sit down and to be there and present with our grief and with our pain and our sorrows, because that's where we find a lot of our purpose. And in the ways that we've been hurt and in the ways that we've been wronged, do we find how we can make ourselves happy and to heal ourselves, because a wound that goes unrecognized is a wound that later becomes infected and becomes our death. So just bringing that to the Black community is more important than anything, because we look at grief as something that's too heavy to hold. But until we hold it, I don't think we'll know what actual happiness and freedom and liberation is.
Absolutely. And I brought that up. My partner, Damien Clayton Jones, he's doing the whole plant-based thing, and he's been getting into that and the whole, he got a couple of books coming out, and he's been certified as a wellness coach. And he's really, we're going to be doing more shows on that, because that is also, while the education part is as important as that is, and that is missing, what you're talking about, healing and wellness, and that is missing just as much in our community. A lot of times we live in food deserts, and there's not a lot of healthy options, and the importance of eating healthier and treating our body like a temple, basically. I, as someone who has abused their body for most of their life, I'm realizing that now. And better late than never, I guess. But that is a very important. You can't fight if you're not healthy. You can't keep fighting for your rights. You can't keep educating people. You can't keep mentoring people. You have to be here to do those things, and that means being healthy. And again, this conversation is just organically going everywhere. Last words about Juneteenth, the importance of Juneteenth, the programs y'all are doing, and the dates. Tuesday start.
So our date is Saturday, June 19th. We are kicking it off with a Grand Marshal brunch. We will go from the City Peaceful Youth Borough to Depew Park, where we'll be joined by bands and master drummers and African dancers and spoken word, and our youth and dance from 1 to 3. And then we will end our Juneteenth Day with a virtual celebration hosted by the Peekskill NAACP.
And here in Pelham, it's going to be on Saturday, June 19th, from 1 to. I mean, they said we're closing out at 7:30. I think we're going to be in there until well later.
You know how we do.
But it starts from 1 to 7:30 at Wolf's Lane Park, which is across the street from the train station on Wolf's Lane here in Pelham, and starting with art dedication, with art show exhibit. Then we're moving into the picture house at 3 for spoken word. I mean, I'm sorry, we're not going to the picture house at 3. They're going to be continual short films being shown at the picture house that you can go back and forth from. Wolf's Lane Park is across the street from the picture house as well. And so then from 3 on, that's where a lot of the entertainment type of things are happening after the artwork and the art exhibits. Are happening with the spoken word, with Ayaba Mandingo, with Abishai coming on at 4, with a lot of the speakers coming on at 4:30. Then from 5 on, we're gonna have food and DJ speakers, celebration. That's why I said, it says from 5 to 7:30 for the 5:30 to 7:30 with everything else, but we'll still be out there for a good period of time at Wolf's Lane Park in Pelham, New York, Village of Pelham.
So for everybody that's listening to this and will listen to this, whether you know what Juneteenth is or not, whether you understand the importance, come out and celebrate your Blackness at these events. And you may even learn something. You know what I'm saying? Come experience celebrate your Blackness, your culture, at these events and then all the other events. We gotta. I applaud y'all for collectively, individually for the work y'all are doing. I do understand when you do any of this kind of work, it's a thankless job. It's often a labor of love. We could probably all be doing something that pays a lot more. But I find that just when I see what we're doing, that we could actually, I'm touching actual lives, and you can see the seeds of the fruit of your seeds growing. You know what I'm saying, throughout your community. It just makes the job worthwhile. I'm just it makes it so much worthwhile, and I thank y'all. Dr. Bob, did you have any shout to Dr. Bob? This was his. Unmute your mic. This was we have two co-hosts, and a lot of times I put these shows together, but when they come up with an idea, I definitely want them to run with it. And this was Dr. Bob's idea. He put this together, and I want to applaud him for bringing this conversation to the forefront. That is necessary, because you can never, Black Westchester will never be what it can be if it's just what I'm thinking. You know what I'm saying? If I don't, utilize the people around me and let them express themselves and what they think is important too. So I thank him for putting this together.
Well, I appreciate it, AJ. I want to thank the guests again for joining us on air. I do want to note one last public service announcement, and that is in Pelham this week on the 16th, Wilson Atiba, and I think it's here now, is going to be performing at the library from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. So for those of you who are looking to start your Juneteenth celebration off early, not waiting to the day proper, this is an opportunity. And again, you can get more information about Juneteenth programming from various sources, including this one happens to be from the Pelham Library. But more broadly, I want to thank you guys for joining us on air, for sharing with the audience the kind of programming that's being done here in the county around Juneteenth, and really serving as exemplars of the modern day African American freedom struggle. Each of you in your own way of continuing the legacy of struggle. And certainly it's an invitation for more of us to join with you. I know I raised my hands with y'all. Look forward to being out there at some of the programming over the weekend. Y'all might see me over, at a couple of spots.
I want to shout out Angela Ferris from New Rochelle. She's been on the show a few times. She may be a guest co-host. I might call on every now and then. And Mina, don't be surprised I call you to be a guest co-host sometime too. Serious. But she wanted us to know that they're having their first Juneteenth event in New Rochelle this Saturday. I will try to find some information. Angela, if you can email me that, I'll put it up on the website and share that under the show. I just want to thank everybody who tuned in. As always, you could be doing anything else right now, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. Thank you to our guests. Continued success. Anything we can do to help, anything we could do to shed light, please. blackwestchester@gmail.com. Keep us informed. Jeff, if you ever need me to speak anywhere, or you want to put a mic in front of me for a whatever topic it is, you let me know, and I have no problem running my mouth.
I'll reach out. Yeah.
No, I don't turn down too many mics. Angela said the New Rochelle event kicks off at City Hall 10 a.m. She'll send me the information. It's New Rochelle's having their first Juneteenth event. I think that should be applauded. We're gonna it's kind of late right now, but everybody listening, I think I said this before when Bob was prepping this show on previous shows. Anybody that knows any information about any Juneteenth activities happening in Westchester, email me in the next 24 to 48 hours at blackwestchester@gmail.com, and I will try to put a brief list together, and then a link to what Bob showed of Arts Westchester or whatever, and just to give everybody, at one place you can see all the things going on if you want to do anything. And I thank everybody for doing what they're doing. I can't say that enough. Again, we're reaching us. This is episode 303. We're about to celebrate our 7-year anniversary of the website, our 7-year anniversary of the radio show, and our 4-year anniversary of the newspaper. And we thank all of y'all who have been along for the ride with us. We're on every Sunday, 6 to 8. Right now, streaming on Facebook and Instagram. You can watch the previous shows on blackwestchester.com. And with that said, I think I'm going to, that's it. Play a little promo, and we're out of here.
Thank you.
You are now tuned into the People Before Politics radio show, brought to you by the good folks at
Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Check the newspaper. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Check the newspaper.
Real talk for the community since 2014.